Hello everyone, welcome to Decoding Downtowns, brought to you by Vistity. In this podcast, we dive deep with leaders from business improvement districts across the nation, revealing the strategies that are shaping the future of urban development and economic growth. Thanks for joining us. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. It's Jamie Schwartzman. I'm pretty excited today because we're going to downtown Asheville. I love Asheville. It's a great artist colony, terrific place for beer drinking, and also the home of one of my best friends. So today we're going to meet Hayden Plemmons. She is the executive director of the Downtown Asheville Association in Asheville, North Carolina. Hayden, how are you today, and welcome?
Doing well, thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about downtown Asheville from your perspective.
Well, downtown Asheville is such a fun and vibrant place to be. I mean, looking out of my window now, I have a busker playing, and there are visitors and locals that are coming to the shops and fantastic restaurants. We have beautiful parks in downtown, so it's really just an incredible community.
So tell us a little bit about Downtown Asheville Association, how you organized, how you funded.
Sure. So the Asheville Downtown Association is a 501c6 member-based advocacy organization. We also have a 501c3 nonprofit arm, and we have done a lot of, like I mentioned, advocacy and placemaking work in the community since 1987. And we are, mostly member-based. We have a lot of corporate sponsors, and we also produce some of downtown Asheville's flagship public events like our Downtown After 5 series, the Holiday Parade, Independence Day, and so much more.
I see. But as far as property tax assessment, does that not exist in your district?
Well, great question. We are having a brand new business improvement district that was just implemented by City Council this June. So everyone is eagerly awaiting that request for proposal to come from the city, which should come out in September, which our organization intends to respond to for management of a business improvement district, which will incorporate some of that tax funding.
Great. So tell us a little bit about what do you do? What's your role?
Sure. So as the executive director, I kind of oversee the membership and advocacy function. We have one more team member who does our events management, and it's just a lot of relationship building, getting in front of our members and stakeholders in downtown, asking what they'd like to see improved or changed, and being that conduit between our business owners and city council and city staff and the county, making sure that we keep Asheville a very vibrant and inviting place to be.
And so tell me a little bit about the membership and what types of businesses they are and what kind of people they are.
Sure. So one of the best parts about downtown Asheville is the local business culture. We have an incredible retail mix, right? You have a mom and pop shop right next to Anthropology, right next to your favorite brewery, right next to, the best bookstore in the Southeast. And it's just really exciting. And those folks have been ingrained in the community in downtown Asheville for years, and they all still play a really, really strong role in our organization and what makes Asheville special.
And then, how about you, Hayden? How did you get into this work, and what are you all about?
Sure. Well, I say that the placemaking bug bit me in, early 2014. My husband and I, we lived in Denver, Colorado. He's a bit of a serial entrepreneur, and we started a wild game jerky company where we sold out of a covered wagon on the 16th Street Mall in Denver.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. It was interesting. It was kind of a nighttime weekend gig, and we paid rent to the Downtown Denver Partnership, which managed all the vendors on the mall. They also produced these events called Meet in the Street. And it was a time where, it was our busiest day of the year for sure, and days of the year whenever we had Meet in the Street as a vendor, but also it was incredible to see the activation and the placemaking that went on the 16th Street Mall. It was completely open to pedestrians, and they laid out turf and put out lawn chairs for people. There was even one day where there was this giant pool, and they had people paddleboarding in the middle of the 16th Street Mall. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to work for them one day. And so I kind of waited it out, and finally they posted a job for an HR manager, which was my day job, and started at the Downtown Denver Partnership in 2017. And I was there for a little more than 6 years, and really got to experience a little bit of everything, at the Downtown Denver Partnership. Made my way to more of an operations role, and then got introduced to the International Downtown Association, where I was a part of the Emerging Leaders Fellowship. And I was just like, wow, this world is huge. This is, a real job, a real career, and was encouraged by my cohort and just everything I learned through that program, and felt like I could take on Asheville. My husband was born and raised here, and so it felt like kind of a coming home and coming back to the East Coast where we were raised. So Asheville's been super fun. It's a totally different animal than what I experienced in Denver, but we're doing some good work here.
How long have you been in this role?
1 year and like 1 week. So it's flown by.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about economic development and, what your organization does to fuel economic development in downtown Asheville.
Sure. So this organization historically had played a little bit more of that kind of placemaking role, place-based economic development, from activating the streets and closing down the streets to, to reimagining sidewalks and reimagining how people can access the businesses in downtown. Also, Asheville has a deep history of, a pro-business culture, a pro business landscape, but in a different way than I would say most cities, because even post-pandemic, we saw reports that the retail vacancy here, -1% retail vacancy. I don't know how that's even possible, but it's really bounced back. I would say not that we had too hard of a time as far as economic development goes in downtown Asheville during the pandemic, but especially coming out of the pandemic, we're just seeing really, really strong business culture.
Are these day part visitors? Were there coming more daytime visitors? People coming in and out? Are they people that are there in downtown all the time?
We have a lot of tourists, of course, and I think our tourist months, our busiest months for tourism, are July and October. I learned about the economics of camp culture, which is wild, right? We're here in Western North Carolina. There are more than 250 camps. So if you think about all the families that are flying from everywhere to drop their kid off at camp, they stay in hotel rooms, they eat out, they enjoy time in the city when they're dropping their kid off, and then they come back 2, 4, 6 weeks later to pick their kid up again. And I think that's really cool, and not something that I had considered as kind of an economic driver. And then, of course, our leaf season is in October, so we see a lot of guests then. Otherwise, downtown it's really incredible, and not something you see that often. We have a lot of services in downtown. People can come get their nails done here. People can get their watch fixed. They can get their shoes shined. So it's pretty cool to see the locals actually really do use downtown. And I don't think every city can say that.
So it's a blend of locals and tourists.
Absolutely.
So what are the challenges right now in economic development for you guys?
Sure. Well, I think vacancy is a really big one. After having worked in Denver for a number of years, it was kind of a shell shock to go to lunch with someone and they say, we're really growing. We have an architecture business in downtown. We want to stay in downtown, but there's no place for us.
I see. So when you say vacancy, you have a vacancy problem. There's not enough available inventory.
Right. We aren't seeing that office exodus that other cities saw during the pandemic. And I did go back and look, and in the first quarter of this year, we had about a 7% office vacancy, which that's a number, but it's not a big number. And for an architecture firm that is growing so quickly and they want to stay in downtown, but of course, they're an architecture firm, so they want something a little bit special, and they're not necessarily looking for Class A. We haven't had office square footage added to the city, and my understanding is nearly 17 years. So that's huge. And so it's hard for us to keep those growing companies in downtown. They're starting to look at our adjacent neighborhoods like West Asheville, North Asheville.
With this lack of vacancy right now, I would think developers are eager to come in and invest. Why aren't they?
Sure. So our community in downtown Asheville, we actually have a UDO, which is a Unified Development Ordinance, which can be quite difficult to navigate through city
I've
council.
never heard of a UDO before, so can you help break it down for me a little
You
bit?
know, it was new to me as well, and it's something that I'm trying to understand through our Planning and Zoning Commission. But essentially, there are restrictions on how tall of a building you can build, how much, space it needs to take up, what type of use, because we also have a hotel overlay, a hotel district overlay. So, we're really kind of trying to limit the amount of hotels that are added. Asheville has, some restrictions on short-term rentals and things like that. And then also just trying to balance, the affordable housing with Class A, kind of more luxury apartments and what gets added. So it's really interesting. Yeah.
So what do when you're just the discussions right now around zoning, what is the sort of the prevailing thought?
Right. So there's a lot of discussion right now about changing the UDO to allow for more mixed use, to allow for more two-story buildings, to try and achieve both kind of the look and feel of Asheville, not trying to get huge skyscrapers, but making sure we're increasing density, but that it works for our community. And then also that we talk so much about middle housing, right? Like, what does it look like to taper off downtown into our historic neighborhoods? And so our Planning and Zoning Commission are really leading the charge on changes and updates to the UDO to make it a little bit more density and development friendly.
That makes sense. So look, you've been in the role a year now. What is working well for you?
Sure. This organization, it's pretty incredible, has a long history of doing great work and building fantastic relationships. And so folks are really looking to us as we lead on the business improvement district. We spoke earlier about the fact that our organization right now is membership based, and there's only so much you can do with that and with the funding there, especially when you're talking about local business. So opening up this opportunity for a millage rate or a tax on property values that's going to stay in downtown. We are the economic center for our region, and we give a lot of money back to the county and to the state. Not a lot of that money actually stays in downtown. So we're really excited to have that opportunity where we can focus a little bit more on economic development and clean and safe initiatives, beautification initiatives, to continue this work of creating a place where people want to do business.
So, do you guys track any data right now in the district?
Goodness. We have great partners that are helping us out with data right now, but my hope through a little bit more fundraising and perhaps through the Business Improvement District is to gain access to some of those programs. It's kind of expensive. Data is expensive, but we would love to be the keeper, not keeper in a keep it to ourselves way, but just the foremost expert on what's going on in downtown. Where are buildings trading hands? What does square footage look like? What does vacancy look like? And how can we begin to track that development, hopefully, when it starts?
I see. And because really the focus is on member and member services, this falls a little bit outside of the purview of your current charter.
Right. I think there is a desire for data. The city has always kind of operated from an anecdotal perspective. And so convincing people that data is important is important. But I think folks are really starting to see the macro impact of how we have been operating, not necessarily as an organization, but as a city, just kind of less proactive and more reactive. And I think that a lot of developers and a lot of business owners who understand that density is going to be really important for the vibrancy of our city going forward, I think they're beginning to lean on that data a little bit more, and let's tell the real story of what's happening here in order to be able to sustain the growth that's happening in Asheville and the region.
Well, I guess you've got two other fundamentals, right? You've got Biltmore, which is a, a arts institution and all that that brought with it. Plus you've got the brewery business. So how does that affect people's decisions and where they decide to go and where they decide to stay?
Sure. And I would venture to say there's one more in the Blue Ridge Parkway and Smoky Mountain National Park. So don't quote me on this, but I believe Smoky Mountain National Park is the most visited national park in the United States. And that's due to accessibility, right? Look at how many people can come into Smoky Mountain versus an Arches National Park or even a Rocky Mountain National Park. It's so accessible for folks. So the Blue Ridge Parkway, Smoky Mountain National Park, the Biltmore, and of course this brewery scene just make Asheville such a vibrant hub of activity. And again, why we consider ourselves really the economic engine of Western North Carolina.
I guess you have a microclimate there too. So, in the summer times, it's pretty comfortable.
It is. It's so nice. I don't think we even broke 90 degrees last year, which was so great in the summertime. And we're really kind of sheltered from a lot of those big weather events, right? We don't really get hurricanes or tornadoes. We did get torrential flooding at our event on Friday and had to cancel, unfortunately. But
oh, wow.
Generally, the weather and the climate here is pretty mild. But you were saying kind of how that impacts, our business is that the partners here, the breweries and the stakeholders in downtown, they are so committed to making this a place where more people want to do business. For instance, I was just mentioning the flooding. We had a brewery in downtown that flooded, had to close its doors for a number of days, don't have access to their brewery equipment or their beer. And they opened up last night and all the other breweries in downtown donated kegs so they can sell beer and help with that revenue. It's just a really, really great community of folks who come together to ensure everyone is successful.
So let's look ahead to the coming year, right? I mean, it's going to go by quickly. And what's on the table? What do you hope to get done in the next 12 months?
Wow, big question. So I think, again, just to come back to the Business Improvement District, we will see the RFP come from the city in September. Our organization will then apply for management and hopefully receive that contract. And then it's go mode, right? Our constituents have been paying for this Business Improvement District since July of this year. So they're really going to want to see their money put to work. So how do we ramp up purchasing of equipment and hiring our team members that are going to be on the streets, and then amplifying that clean and safe enhancements in downtown? Then hopefully folks will, really appreciate what they're seeing and will continue to want to invest in Asheville.
I see. Do you see the primary charter of the bid being safe and clean operations?
At this time, I believe that's where it's going to land.
Okay, great. So let's look a little further down the road, maybe 5 years, 10 years. What's your vision there?
I would love to see with the changes to the UDO that we would be able to add some square footage for retail, for office, for residential in downtown. We have a couple projects in the pipeline that are partnerships, public-private partnerships with Mountain Housing Opportunities and the county, Buncombe County, to add affordable housing right smack in downtown on Cox Avenue, hoping that they can get the funding and see a developer come in and really run with that. There are some other opportunities kind of on the outskirts. I mean, this town is really ripe for the picking. I think we had, nearly 54% of our downtown right now is surface parking lots. So how do we change that? How do we get a little bit of development in the core of downtown so that we can really continue to grow? Like I said, so many people are moving here because of all the reasons we talked about earlier. We need to be able to accommodate them and give them offices and housing and affordable housing. And so I'm really excited to see what kind of public-private partnerships and just general development can come into downtown.
So a lot of infill opportunity in the downtown area?
Yes. So much.
Great. Hey, I ask all my guests the Harry Potter question. Imagine that we're going to play make-believe for a moment, and I've handed you a magic wand, and you could use it to promote the vitality of downtown Asheville. Hayden Plemmons, how would you use your magic wand?
Oh, goodness. I was supposed to think about this question ahead of time. Let's see. I think that In the long term, I would really love to see a recommitment from our locals to downtown. I just got a phone call recently and somebody said, "Oh, I love, the events that you produce. Please don't ever stop." And my answer is, well, keep coming to those events and then we'll never have to stop. And I think that that's the same for all of our businesses. We just want to hold on to the grittiness of Asheville and the local focus and what makes it so special. And so I hope that our locals continue, and even more so, invest in these places so that we can keep up this great work. And then I believe that if locals, kind of show out and show up, that we will get that investment in downtown and the growth that we're hoping to see through the infill and more housing, more square footage for office and retail. So I think that would be a huge addition to our town.
So, maintain the vibe and plan for some growth.
Yes, absolutely. And then if I could do a little extra, I would just light everything with holiday lights along the way. If I can just put a little sparkle on my Harry Potter wand.
Great. Well, I can tell you Downtown Asheville, I've been several times. It's a delightful place, amazing restaurants, just a great place to float around, walk around. Like, what an amazing district that you get to manage.
Absolutely. I'm super proud of it. I feel so lucky every single day to come here and see the faces and, the buskers and the tourists and the shop owners. It is just beyond any wildest expectations of where I would get to live and do work.
Hayden, before we wrap, how can people keep their eyes on what's going on with Downtown Asheville and you in particular?
Sure. So they can visit our website, ashevilledowntown.org. Don't forget, Asheville has an E in the name. So ASHEVILLE, downtown.org. Our website, we try and keep it up with news stories and how to follow what's going on. Also, of course, our social media, which is at ABL Downtown on Instagram and Facebook. So we really hope folks will keep up with our story and see the growth and excitement as we launch a Winter in Downtown program, as we have the Business Improvement District get started up, and hopefully more.
Hayden, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't know that was a little late. A little delayed.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
Hey, and just want to again thank the listeners for joining us on Decoding Downtowns. These podcasts are so interesting to get to talk to leaders in different districts around the country. Also like to thank Vistity for sponsoring us. Until we meet next time, keep innovating and exploring in your districts.
Thank you for joining us today for Decoding Downtowns. If you've enjoyed our podcast, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's brought to you by Vistity, the leading geospatial visualization platform for data-driven decisions. Stay connected, stay informed, and let's continue to shape the future of our cities together. Until next time, I'm Jamie Schwartzman.